Hello everybody, it's Paul Smith here and I'm joined by my lovely wife.
Nicole Smith. Hi everybody.
Normally we're quite bouncy, bubbly, full of energy. I have to say we're both a bit not flat at the moment, really because we feel we've been let down. We paid a lot of money to be mentored for 3 years by the person that's done this to us. The fundamental issue here is breach of trust. And we feel very, very strongly there should be an absolute level of trust between a mentor and a mentee. And no mentee would ever share anything with a mentor if they thought that this was going to happen. So this was published by Rob Moore of Progressive Property. And here is the title of it. And bear in mind, this is someone that we paid to mentor us for years. And the title of this article is Touchstone Education, led by Paul Smith, a scam. This is a personal attack on me by my ex-mentor, using all sorts of innuendo that we're going to go into. If you're looking into Paul Smith, you should be aware that Paul Smith and his company, Touchstone Education, are a relatively newly formed company. Results as a property investor and their property success, 8 million portfolio, unclear. We're doing this for balance. Rob Moore, this is a personal message from us to you. The implication here is that Touchstone Education is a relatively newly formed company and Paul Smith doesn't have much experience. Okay, let's clear that one up. Touchstone Education was formed in October 2014. So I guess you could call that newly formed in the context of history. But if we look at when Progressive Property was formed, Rob Moore's company, I believe it was in,
January 2011.
2011. Okay, so we've got an 8-year-old company calling a 4.5-year-old company newly formed. All right. Both of us used to work for big blue chips. Aniko started her career in Procter & Gamble, moved across to Allied Domecq. I worked in various big blue chips. I ended up in Allied Domecq eventually. And we both finished our corporate careers at board level. So our business experience, or my business experience, spans 22 years, various senior management positions, and my last senior management position was Managing Director of Allied Distillers, which was the biggest part of Allied Domecq. Annika was Commercial Director. And in that role, I had responsibility for more than £2.5 billion worth of turnover, more than 3,500 staff, more than 26 sites. And in case anyone wants to question my business credentials, I've got quite a CV. In terms of education and our ability to mentor and educate other people, we've both got first degrees. I'm an engineer, Aniko's an accountant. Aniko's got other business qualifications. I've got a master's in business administration.
So am I.
Aniko's got an MBA as well. We've both got MBAs. So if anybody wants to question our credentials, are we the brightest people in the world? No. Do we have an adequate education to support us in what we're doing? I would say so. Do we have a good amount of experience at everything from small companies to big companies? 100%. But this is clear innuendo. Relatively newly formed property, property success, unclear. Well, before we went anywhere near Rob Moore and Progressive Property, we had this house. Now, this house wasn't a house when we bought it, it was a care home. And we paid for it less than £500,000 and it's now worth way more than £1 million. So we did a commercial conversion before we went anywhere near Progressive Property. How did we manage to afford it? Because of the earnings in our corporate careers. We were both big 6-figure earners before we ever went anywhere near Progressive. So this challenge to our success and portfolio unclear is nonsense. We spent 3 years being personally mentored by Rob Moore. So here on this account, you can see how much money we've spent. This schedule shows it. So we invested £91,775.98, an incredible almost 100, but it's not, it's £91,775.98. We went to the Cayman Islands twice. We also went on a VIP trip to New York. Rob came personally as our guest to Monaco. So there is no shortage of knowledge in Rob Moore's head about who we are. And I know Aniko feels particularly strongly about it.
I do, especially because when we became aware of that piece of material on the Progressive website, I personally contacted Rob and asked why is that, and asked him to remove it. Happy to share the email correspondence between ourselves. Unfortunately, not too long before we left working with Progressive, Rob done the same to another trainer, used their name and scam in a search engine and SEO piece of work on their website. When we saw that, we were shocked and questioned Rob on our one-to-one, why is that? And Rob shared it with us that this other person done something which he didn't like, and that was the response. So I assumed we done something again, what Rob wasn't happy about. Rob came back within like less than 15 minutes saying, good to hear from me, and see below pitching on our ads.
Paul pitching on our ads.
Yeah.
Now, to be clear, what Paul was doing was pointing out on one of the Progressive adverts that the video featuring Paul Smith as a Progressive property trainer was actually misleading. So as a reward for me pointing out that, in my view, Progressive shouldn't be enticing people to their events using me when since October 2017, we haven't worked with them. I get this every week. I get, oh, I went to a Progressive event and you weren't there, Paul, I missed you. I get that. So quite why Rob thinks it's okay to keep on using me to advertise Progressive, I've no idea. And when I pointed it out in public that I wasn't there anymore, he wrote this article. And what this article, if you Google Touchstone Education, the number one result that comes up, thanks to Rob Moore and his elegant SEO work, because when I asked him why he'd done that to another trainer, he said that the other trainer had done something exactly as Aniko said that he didn't approve of, and he described his work, exact quote, as elegant. It's not elegant, Rob, it's crass. And I know you might not know what that word means, but this you can't read this in English. It's stuffed from an SEO point of view. We know what that means because since 2004, we had an internet marketing company. So we know how to optimize things for the internet. What we're not prepared, however, to do is descend to this level.
It's really disappointing from a mentor who we trusted, Rob, to get this, especially that we paid £4,200 for Paul to become a lead trainer, a mentor, to start our own business, Touchstone Education. You trained us for that, and you feel that we are growing and it's to your disbenefit. Suddenly you are starting to use tactics like that.
Well, one of the things that I find deeply disturbing is that you're now challenging all the claims that you ever made that you previously supported to advertise your business. So was it that you didn't do due diligence then and you shouldn't have made the claims that you made, in which case I think an apology is due? Or is it that you did actually believe us then and now it suits you to try and discredit us? You're using the exact material that earned millions of pounds for your company to discredit a competitor. Now for me, I'd be delighted if one of my mentees got to a level above me. And if that's a level of challenge you can't cope with, I think that's something that you need to work on. Their claim of managing a portfolio of over 200 HMO lets as well as service apartments, commercial properties is unclear too. Don't think so. Rob Moore, if you don't believe that, come to our office in Doncaster, meet our team, meet our staff, they will show you. It's not unclear. You might not know it. I'd be horrified if you didn't after spending all those years as a mentor with us. But if you have any doubts, come to our office in Doncaster and the team will show you. Now, if there's any dubiety about that in anybody's heads, no. Me and Aniko do not own 200 HMOs or 200 HMO rooms. We've got 61 HMO rooms. And we've got loads of service departments, and we've got commercial property, and we've got lots of other things. We have never claimed to have 200 HMOs. We manage through our lettings company, but that's not Touchstone Education. We've got a separate lettings company called Diamond Estates. So this at best is sloppy, and from an ethical professional businessman, you would never see it. You shouldn't read what you at first glance as true, but this doesn't necessarily make it a scam. Okay, Rob, in case you don't know what that's called juxtaposition. It's not saying it's a scam, it's just putting it next to, juxtaposition. He claims to be a landlord and have a property portfolio. I find this really, really sad to have to say. You can easily see where we are landlords and have property portfolios because one of our property portfolios is in Scotland, and in Scotland you are required to be, I don't know if you know it or not, Rob, a registered landlord.
But Rob, you know it quite well that we have properties and we are landlords. So why did you feel that it's necessary to put it out there? Tell you why. Because people who are new to Touchstone and will find that, they don't know our relationship that you mentored us for 3 years. They don't know that you are doing this to push our company down and you are using the traffic, what you are getting based on our name, for your own business.
I don't know how old you are, Rob. I think you're 36 or 37. So I bought my first property when you were 1 year old. Or whatever, however old you are. But certainly while you were still at nursery and before you went to primary school. I had my first HMO when I was 23. So that's 31 years ago. You were maybe at primary school when I had my first HMO. And it just keeps coming back to, we gave you £91,775.98 and you don't actually know whether we're landlords or not. I mean, what kind of mentor takes the best part of 100k and doesn't know whether the mentee is a landlord?
Yeah, that would be really sad results for you, Rob, isn't it, or your company, to take 100,000, the best part of it, and not to have one property to make us a landlord. We were a landlord before we went to Progressive.
There's then a specific allegation that there have been public complaints of investors lending money to Paul Smith regarding Denison House. Absolutely not true, and you know it. Nobody ever lent Paul Smith 1 pence for Denison House. How do I know that you know? Because through that entire process, you were our mentor. You were advising us. You were telling us how to do that project. But if anyone wants to read the real inside story, I've written a book. A complete book. And it's the biggest chapter in that book. So if you want to get the real inside track on Denison House, go and read this book. It's all in there. Now, as far as I know, no investor of Denison House has ever made a public complaint. So quite where you've got this fact that there was a public complaint, I've no idea.
And people really should read the book and then they will make their own judgment.
There are no obvious property investing or property scams that Paul Smith or Touchstone Education seem to have been involved with, though you should do your own property due diligence. Absolute, total innuendo. There are no obvious property scams that Rob Moore of Progressive Property have been involved with over the years. Although some of you may have heard some rumours to the contrary, naturally you should do your own due diligence. I would never write that. And I've only said it to parody what you said. Complete nonsense. Anyone that's interested, go and check out the net assets of Progressive Property. And if you want us to, we can show you some of our companies that have got far greater net assets than that of Progressive Property.
Well, very disappointed, Rob. Wanted to sort it out this between ourselves, so contacted you and Mark. Unfortunately, you didn't respond to that. You were not very helpful. Then we used a third party, somebody who mentoring our company and a friend of yours to go and help to put this into bed and you to come to your senses, to a better word. As a mentor, you really shouldn't do these kind of publications. You didn't respond to that either. That's why we resorted to a public message to you, so that now other people can hear as well what a mentor you were to us. Disappointed, very disappointed.
And for me, to take the positive out of this, Rob, thank you. You've taught us once more the difference between the way perhaps some other people do it and the way we want to do it. I would never challenge Progressive on its ability to market and sell to people. At Touchstone Education, our core value is knowledge and wealth creation. We put huge emphasis on the quality of what we deliver in terms of the material. And perhaps, yes, we're not as noisy or showy, and we don't drive Ferraris, because I don't particularly like Ferraris. And all that kind of over-the-top marketing stuff that we could so easily do, we don't. Because we want to offer real knowledge to real people. Not pipe dreams to part people from the last few pennies. So I'm going to finish the video with a thank you, Rob. Doesn't mean I agree with what you've done. Doesn't mean I would have done it. But I want to thank you for doing it. The end to the message that we talked about before we started it was we would both like to invite you to our offices in Doncaster. We've got, I don't know if you know, Rob, we've got 7,000 square foot of offices in Doncaster. Downstairs, we've got our staff. Upstairs, we've got our training suites. So 2 offers. Come and meet the staff. They'll take you around some of our properties. They'll show you some of our commercial properties. They'll show you some of our HMOs. They'll show you some of our service departments. They'll give you as much detail as you need to answer what you've put in here. But then specifically, what I'd like to call you out in public on, Rob, is I'd like to have a debate about this that you've written and you refuse to take down, live on stage at one of our 6-figure summits. You can bring your own videographer, we'll have ours, so it'll be recorded, and let's just discuss it. Let's just discuss your claims, whether you should have done it, what evidence you've got to support it, and whether you now regret it or you're glad you did it.
I just don't want to be a mentor who can do that to anybody.
No, we are clear about that. We mentor a lot of people, a lot of really successful people doing fantastic things.
And can I just say to those people, you are safe with us. I can guarantee you that.
I know everybody watching this will know that she means that. You are safe with us. I hope the content has been useful in terms of balance. There's plenty of lessons in here. Because after all, what am I? Nothing if not a teacher. Learn the lesson and move on.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
You know what I normally say? Just see you next time.